The antidote.
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 Y estás escuchando The Antidote.
The antidote.
The antidote.
The antidote.
You're listening to The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
With Christian music that doesn't suck.
When the battle's over and the smoke clears, canyons quieting cold, all the stones are thrown. I'm coming home. Carry me home. Amidst the burning strife, the chaos and the fire, amidst the toils of life, I dreamed of no arms but your own. I'm coming home. Carry me home. Lay me down, 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 lay me down. I'm coming home. Carry me home.
This is The Antidote with Dave Hawkins. You know, I'm not typically a fan of husband and wife duos. I usually find the songs have lame lyrics and they're pretty light on music talent. That certainly doesn't apply to the Stapletons. Their music shows what happens when a mariachi guitar player from LA marries a harpist from Wisconsin. The music of the Stapletons is a definite change from what's usually heard on The Antidote. They bring beautifully interwoven vocals, blues-driven harp and guitar, and lyrics that are inspired by the past, making a wonderfully unique creation. Enjoy this talk with Kate and Casey Stapleton. Casey and Kate Stapleton are known as the Stapletons. So good to have the two of you here on The Antidote.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
I really need to know this. Was it a struggle for you deciding on your band name?
It was it was a quick decision. We thought about a lot of long artistic names, and I think our friend who's a musician who was kind of mentoring us said, you know, you guys are grown-ups, just call yourselves your name. So I think that was our decision-making process.
Now it's been a challenge because, Chris Stapleton is really famous. And when you search for us, he comes up very often. So we kind of get lost.
And he sings with his wife. So when we started our project in our attic at home, Chris Stapleton, the country singer, hadn't really hit the big time. But by the time that we released our album, we were sort of buried beneath his country fame.
And you guys are definitely not country.
No, not at all.
You know, even though Ballads and Battles is the debut release from the Stapletons, the two of you tower over the rest of the music scene. Now, you care to explain why?
Yeah, physically
We're over 12 feet of people.
I'm 6 feet tall, and Casey.
And I'm 6'5", and we're just tall people, and
I think people often think that musicians are larger than life, and we actually are.
And you two have broken the trend. Usually someone tall marries someone way shorter, like my wife marrying me.
Right. That's the way it normally goes. I think my oldest daughter is probably going to be 6'3". She's 7 now, but her current trajectory looks like she's going to be taller than I am. So
The song Blue Mountain Girl has the line, "I knew you belonged in a quiet life where we could become another life." The two of you are both from the States, but you've come from very different cultures. Is this song really the story of your relationship?
Yeah, I wrote that song when Kate and I started dating. She was living in Asheville, North Carolina, and I was living in Pittsburgh. And I drive down to see her about once every other month. And she'd drive up once a month. I drive down. And as I drive through the Blue Mountains, that tune kind of hit me, and at that time we got engaged. And, when you have kids, it's like you're becoming another life. So that was in the back of my mind when I wrote that.
And I think, as you mentioned, we're from very different places. So at that point, I was living in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I lived for a while halfway up the side of a mountain with no plumbing and very little electricity. Casey's from LA. I'm from Wisconsin, farm country, so really the northern part of the United States. And we're really almost from as close as you can get to being from two completely different cultures. So yeah, that song was kind of the initial sort of bringing together these totally different cultural backgrounds.
Chains upon an open highway, drifting on and on. Mountains wearing rings of thunder, hills bathed in gold. I knew you alone, the quiet life. That's why you belong in paradise. Many whispers tell me, run away, far away, get away from here, where the sound of your voice will carry me. Blue, blue, mountain girl. Echoes of 1,000 lifetimes hushed among the trees. What they hold, the skies uncover distant melodies. I knew you alone, the quiet life, where we could become another life. Yeah, many whispers tell me, run away, far away, get away from here, but the sound of your voice will carry me. Blue, blue, mountain girl. Time thunder. Fire thrown in a raging thunder. Why everything is new when I'm with the mountain girl.
You know, Kate, you have a place of honor here, since you're the one that's finally going to give the antidote some class. You're the very first harpist I've ever had on this program.
Wow, I'm happy to be the first.
Couldn't there have been something easier to learn, like a guitar?
There's a lot of instruments that are easier than the harp. I grew up playing piano. I played the flute for a little while. I switched to tuba, which is much easier than the harp, although just as unwieldy to carry around. But I heard a harp when I was in my senior year of high school. I walked into my friend's home and her father was recording a harpist, and I heard the sound and just was so blown away. I thought, I want to make that sound happen. So I started playing a really tiny harp at that point and kind of worked my way up from there.
Of course, I was saying that just to torment you, Casey, because I know the guitar is your thing. But your style isn't the typical rock guitarist.
Yeah, I spent some years in a monastery, and I think that formed me a little bit. But when I first learned guitar, my mom forced me to take lessons. So I'm half Mexican, and it was sort of a cultural thing that I had to learn how to play guitar. And for a month and a half or so, I would go to my weekly lesson, and I hated playing the guitar, hated it. And so after a month and a half, my mom said I could quit, which was, music to my ears. And about a few weeks later, I was listening to REM, Losing My Religion, and I'm like, I gotta learn this song. And so I went back to the guitar lesson, and my guitar teacher just kind of rolled his eyes. And instead of teaching me that song, he started teaching me like Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and my taste sort of moved away from the melodic into more like bluesy rock stuff. But I've always been drawn to just very straight melodies. In fact, the first guitar I played on was a gift from my uncle from Mexico. So it was this like really thick mahogany classical guitar that he got. He's a lawyer in Mexico, and my uncle got this guitar as payment for one of his cases. He defended a guitar maker in court, and the guitar maker made him a guitar. So that's what I actually used on our Christmas single that we just released. What Child Is This? That's the sound you hear.
That's so cool. And I understood that you were actually playing mariachi. Yeah.
For a few summers, I would sort of moonlight as a mariachi singer in a restaurant in Los Angeles. It was a lot of fun, but I got tired of it. But, I grew up listening to that music. And when we'd visit relatives in Mexico, I'd always hear those songs. I like the rhythm of mariachi players and the style and the raking and just their approach to it. So that's influenced me a little bit. Also, when we got married, I wore a mariachi suit to our wedding. Yeah, on the album.
It's the same one we're still using today. It's really come in surprisingly handy in the long run.
It was a worthwhile purchase.
Yeah, that's right.
Without having heard the music of the Stapletons, I wouldn't have thought it would be possible really to connect the sound of a mariachi guitarist to a Celtic harpist. But those styles don't really come up too often on your album Ballads and Battles. How would you describe your sound?
I mean, yeah, that sound hasn't come up yet. It will. Like, we're writing some new songs that really have that sound. But I would say Ballads and Battles has more of a historical, very earthy feel. It's very straightforward. The storytelling is at the forefront.
Yeah, I think we're still working to define our sound, or maybe we're defining a sound that people will refer back to. It's unusual to hear the approach to the guitar and the harp that we've taken, because as far as we've been able to find so far, it's just not being done. You hear duos doing guitar and harp music with a very straightforward Celtic approach, That's pretty common. There's a lot of classical guitarists and harpists who work together. There's some jazz combinations, but we're pulling in, little pieces of kind of almost medieval sounding pieces. Casey brings a ton of blues, and he's actually arranging a lot of the harp pieces on ballads and battles, which I think is what gives us part of the really unique sound, which is that you have someone who's fundamentally a blues guitarist arranging for harp, which is something that I've never heard before as a harpist. So I think we're defining a new sound. So if you have any way to describe it, we'd appreciate that.
I'd want to crush you guys here, but it's not too likely that you're going to be finding the Stapletons music on Top 40 radio.
Right.
Are the fans of your music hunting for something different?
I think that people respond to beautiful music, and you don't often find beautiful music on Top 40 radio. That you find really, perfectly crafted pop music, and Top 40 especially has gone in such a processed, commercialized direction that people are really struck by the difference in the music that we're making. So we've had a tremendous response from people as far as listening to music that really hits them in a real way. So I think that that's one of the things that people have appreciated.
I mean, I think our music's not for everybody, and it's a little bit more mellow and kind of folky. We don't have aspirations to make it, top 40 hits or anything like that. But we just want to make beautiful music and get it out there and hope it inspires people.
When we say that we're not interested in top 40 performances, we've had a really great response to live concerts. We did a tour last summer with our kids, which actually went really well. We did a lot of house concerts. We did some outdoor concerts. Our music demands that people sit down and listen to it. These days, I think people will get on their headphones, are going through life with headphones on, and music creates the soundtrack to your life in a lot of ways. But our music, it demands people to take a moment to listen to it. We really enjoy connecting with audiences, and our music does well in almost a more theatrical setting because we're doing more storytelling with it. People are sitting down. I think there's a huge amount of people who would enjoy listening to this music, and we're working to connect with them as much as we can.
And when we play live, Kate will tell stories between the songs, which, explain, how we wrote them, the background of the music. That's really part of the show too, the storytelling, which you don't really get on the album, but playing live, that's what you'll hear.
I would have said the complete opposite. I would have said yes, that all the songs are stories, which makes it so captivating.
Right. And I grew up listening to a ton of folk radio and sort of classic folk music. A lot of the music I grew up listening to was Canadian music. And I think Canadian listeners really appreciate storytelling more than Americans, possibly because so many of these great storytelling songs that I grew up with were Canadian writers. And, I was inspired by that sense of not being afraid to tell stories that demand the listener to listen and enjoy them. And also, Appalachian storytelling is the same way that there are these long storytelling ballads that came over from the Celtic region. So I have a huge background in storytelling that I think came out a lot when we were writing the album.
And that's why the kids love you at bedtime.
They do, although the songs on our album are too sad for some of our kids. My 7-year-old refuses to listen to most of the songs.
Yeah, they'll cover their ears.
Yeah, there's line of, when your brother's dying, it's just the Ballad of the Arsenal Girls. So they're not at the stage where they're appreciating gory songs. A couple of the songs, like the younger kids like them, but some of them are like, this song is too scary for me.
They're pretty grave. But we do have other songs we play that aren't as grave. But on that particular album, there's a certain darkness to it,
Hi, this is Kate.
And this is Casey.
We're the Stapletons. And you're listening to The Antidote with Dave Hawkins.
Walk with me and I'll show you a long dusty road. Climb the heights and we'll reach fabled cities of gold. They say the promised land is flowing with rivers of wine. but we can make it there if you put your hand into mine. Don't walk away, the treasure sought is really the treasure you find. Don't walk away, there is treasure here, your hand in mine, your hand in mine, your hand in mine, your hand in mine. In the desert waste, struggling though we've just begun, harsh words flame, thirst upon your bitter tongue. In the night, you wake from temptations untold. Melt your being and search for a stranger to hold. Don't walk away, the treasure sought is really the treasure you find. Don't walk away, there is treasure here, your hand in mine, your hand in mine, your hand in mine, your hand in mine. Where do we go from here? Oh, tired and the journey is long. I'll carry you. Oh, we'll rest until we're strong. Walk away, the treasure sought is really the treasure you find. Don't walk away, there is treasure here, your hand in mine, your hand in mine, your hand in mine. Your hand in mine, your hand in mine.
I don't think that Walk With Me from the Stapletons is likely to frighten their kids. On the next part of our talk, Kate and Casey get into how they began creating music as a duo. I really don't know how the two of you do this. So you've got kids, you've probably got jobs, you've got your marriage, you've got your family life. Where do you find the time to create music?
It started in the middle of everything. We came into our marriage as two musicians who were both playing music, and that was a huge part of what we were drawn to in each other, other than our height.
I'm a high school teacher, and Kate was doing freelance music work.
We both quit playing for a significant period of time, especially Casey. I mean, when we were engaged, he was sleeping with his guitar every night. I mean, he was so passionate about music. And then we got married, we had kids, and he just put his guitar away and completely stopped. Didn't play a note for 6 full years. And I was horrified. I was like, wait, I married a musician. What happened? And it kind of came back in the middle of everything. Like you said, we've got 3 kids who are small. They're under 7 years old. And one morning we were drinking coffee in the kitchen and the kids were running around and howling and watching cartoons. And we got out our instruments and started playing a few notes. And that kind of kicked off the whole project. And we thought, wow, this sounds really different. This is a whole different sound and we should pursue this. So We spent a lot of time in our attic. We have a recording studio that we've set up in the attic. We recorded the instruments at a studio here in Pittsburgh, but the rest of it, the entire album was recorded in our attic. And
vocals, and it was mixed in our attic too.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work in the moments that we have at home.
Yeah, we try to find time. It's very difficult. It's challenging, but I might practice by myself. She might practice by herself. But eventually we'll meet up and try to bang out some ideas. But I mean, our practice sessions usually don't last for more than 30 minutes.
We've become very efficient. I think if we had started this project as an engaged couple or without having kids, there would have been a lot more time for drama. And we have no dramatic breakdowns essentially in our time that we have to create art because we have such a limited amount of time. So we can limit our drama to how to load the dishwasher. But as a married couple, in some ways, I think it's so much more efficient to work together artistically because there's only time to do art when we're working on art.
Yeah, and it's really brought us closer together, working on a common end. And the kids like it because when they go with us, we stay at other people's houses who often have lots of kids, and they get to see the country. It's been a great experience.
Yeah, it's really brought us a lot closer together as a couple and as a family. It's been amazing for our marriage because we have so much to appreciate in our project. We both write songs together. We kind of each work on different aspects of the whole music project. So we're able to really appreciate each other for the strengths that we have because we're both contributing different strengths to the project. So at least for me, I've really been so impressed with Casey and just amazed by what he's capable of doing throughout this project.
What else is impressive is the album itself. And I love that you've kept it obvious just the same as your band name. Ballads and Battles. That lays out the direction the release is going. The song stories aren't set in today's age, though.
I think there's a mix. A lot of them were historically based by the sort of place that we live. Some of the songs were drawn very much from the place that we were at personally when we started writing the album. So it was kind of the physical and personal experiences that we were having is what the whole album was drawn out of.
Then you wouldn't be referring to Ballads and Battles as a concept album.
It all kind of came together as a concept for me. I mean, I remember a lot of the songs were sort of based on the Civil War history of this part of Pittsburgh that we live in. And there's an arsenal across the street. We live across from a park, which was originally an arsenal that created a huge amount of the ammunition for several wars, including the American Civil War. And I spent a lot of time there with my children, obviously. And while we were working on kind of trying to figure out what this album was, we knew that we had some initial songs about our relationship. You mentioned Blue Mountain Girl, but things that we were going through as a couple, trying to kind of wrestle our way towards harmony. And at the same time, we were really drawn to write about the history of the arsenal, this massive explosion that happened. And so standing in that space and thinking about the concept, it did sort of all come together to me. I think in some senses it's a concept album, but it kind of came together in a really natural way.
And I can understand your kids being upset. Hearing the song Ballad of the Arsenal Girls, that's a sad, sad song.
Yeah. I really love those lyrics and just, it's a tragic, sad song, but I feel like it just really makes you think about so many things. And that's one of my favorite songs on the album, to be honest.
That song was really inspired personally for me by the fact that we've always lived across from this super historic piece of land here in Pittsburgh. And I was reading an article about it in the newspaper several years ago and was really struck because there was the whole story laid out of the Arsenal explosion, which was the biggest civilian casualty of the Civil War. There were 78 young girls mostly killed in this explosion. And the two of the names on the list of victims, there were sisters who had my last name. So my maiden name is Slattery, and Mary and Ellen Slattery were sisters who died in that explosion. So I've always felt haunted by the story of the Arsenal Girls. And when we started working on this album, I researched the story and was able to find out who their family was. Their father was named Patrick Slattery. My father was named Patrick Slattery. we found out their whole story of how they came from Ireland over to Newfoundland and down to Pittsburgh, and what happened to them, kind of what happened to their family. So for me, that story was really personal. And actually, just a couple months ago, I had a friend who's a genealogist. He's been able to trace that Slattery family and my Slattery family back to the same super tiny village in Ireland through baptismal records. So, I mean, I'm certain that I'm related to those girls, and being able to tell their story was really an amazing thing for me. I feel like they wanted their story to be told.
Oh, my name is Margaret Slattery. I've a bitter tale to tell of my Mary and my Ellen, how I loved them very well. Of my daughters who were slaughtered when the whole world turned to flame. All I ask is you remember, and sometimes you speak their name. I was born and raised in Ireland in a time of toil and strife. So I sailed across the ocean searching for a better life. And baby hung in my arms across the wide Atlantic Sea. Landed there in Newfoundland in 1843. Oh, the new world was a wonder, but a whole lot like the old. I was tired of lonely beauty, longing for some streets of gold. My Mary, she'd been born there, she was tiny when we left. Bound for the point of Pittsburgh, the gateway to the west. There was coal within the mountains, smoke upon the air. Iron and glass and factories and fortunes rising there. My husband was a cobbler making shoes for Richmond's feet. But somehow our children never had enough to read. James was hard to work there till they fired all the boys. Put the powder in the cartridges, guard them off to war. Send them off to the soldiers of the Union. All the powder in the arsenal and made a mighty war. Crying glory, glory, hallelujah. Crying glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Crying glory, glory, hallelujah. Oh, my Mary and my Ellen, they were always side by side. We needed money, so they begged to please let them apply. Team of horses waited for the carters not to go. shield Marie from harm. Only broken bones and flesh were left of youth enjoying home. Their souls risen up to heaven on the dim and drifting smoke. Oh, my Mary and my Ellen, they're buried on the hill. And I walk up to St. Mary's and I visit with them still. All now the children they are raised and doing well. But I can't forget the arsenal and the day that burned like hell. Put the powder in the cartridges and guard them off to war. Send them off to the soldiers of the Union. Pour the powder in the arsenal and be a mighty war. Crying glory, glory, hallelujah. Crying glory, glory, hallelujah. Crying glory, glory, hallelujah. Crying glory, glory, hallelujah.
You spoke about the Civil War and how some of the songs came out of looking at that time period. You also included Battle Hymn of the Republic. I've always struggled with that hymn. Maybe because I'm Canadian and not American. The hymn is all about North against the South during the American Civil War. I guess the issue I have is that it's turned into being more of a patriotic and protest song versus a true hymn.
Right. I think that when I initially suggested it as something to add to the album, I kind of felt like the echo of it, with the arsenal being so close and that Civil War history being so close here, that song kind of really reverberated for me. The lyrics to that song are what I've always been really struck by. And Casey initially wasn't interested in including it because it's got such a bouncy rhythm. So when you think about it, you see Americans marching around with flags, and it's very martial and almost celebratory of this horrible, gory bloodshed that happened. But when we talk about it, when we're playing live, I think what I always mention is that song, during a period of such darkness where the whole nation as it existed at that point, no one was left untouched. There were so many people killed in that war, and it impacted every community and almost every family. And during that time, this woman, because it was a woman who wrote that song, woke up early in the morning in the darkness and lit a candle and wrote these words, which are really eerie, but are also so hopeful and so mysterious. And I think that the way that Casey said it when he created the new setting for the song really brings that to the forefront in a new way, because you're not bouncing along.
And it is a very different arrangement.
Yeah, I mean, like Kate said, I never enjoyed the traditional arrangement. I found it too bippy. I like the words, but I felt like I needed something a bit more reverent and grave, and what I think is like more perennial. And it didn't help too that when there was a video circulating of a memorial service, ex-President George Bush was there holding hands with Michelle Obama, and they were singing Battle Hymn of the Republic, and he was like swaying to the side, grinning, and she was like trying not to smile too.
It was ridiculous. It was like everything that you hated about the song all encapsulated in one moment on YouTube.
And they were trying to hold like George Bush's hands, like to squeeze him to stop swaying so, joyfully. No one could restrain it. It was kind of like hilarious, but I have to change that melody.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He's trampling at the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He's loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. camps. They built him an altar in the evening, dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. Hallelujah, hallelujah, glory, hallelujah, oh glory, hallelujah, glory, hallelujah, His truth marches on. Hallelujah, hallelujah. I've read a fiery gospel, read in burnished rows of steel, as you do with my contenders, so with you my grace shall deal. Let the hero born of woman crush the serpent with his heel. Hallelujah, hallelujah. He sounded forth a trumpet that shall never call retreat. He's sifting out the hearts before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, be jubilant, my feet. Hallelujah, hallelujah, glory, hallelujah, oh glory, hallelujah, glory, hallelujah, our God marches on. Hallelujah, hallelujah. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make us holy, let us die to make men free. Glory, hallelujah, oh glory, hallelujah, glory, hallelujah, His truth marches on. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
that version, the Stapletons have changed my opinion of Battle Hymn of the Republic. On our next segment, Casey and Kate get into how faith and love mix on one of their songs. Okay, so you brought a hymn in. You've also hinted at a Christian faith a couple of times on the release. Maybe I'm just reading this into the song, but I'm sort of seeing that coming through on the flame. Or is that really just my interpretation?
No, I think that's definitely, that was the first song that we wrote together. The melody for that is what we just sat down and started playing in the kitchen one morning. And in many ways, that song was really about our marriage, about our kind of struggle to be in harmony and, you know, getting married as two strong personalities, just trying to figure out how to be yoked together. And that was what that song was about. But at the same time, it was half written, and I was working on it. Casey was working on it. And on his copy of the lyrics, he had scrawled in the top corner about the dark night of the soul. So we were kind of in the middle of the song. It was taking us a while. It was our first time ever writing a song together. And I was at a meeting at church, and it was really late at night. And I saw in the sanctuary, there was the red Eucharistic light burning. We're Catholic, and I was really struck by that light burning in the darkness, and that was kind of the core of what I brought into the song as well. Because while being a song about marriage and marriage being hard sometimes, it was also really a song about the fact that keeping the faith is challenging, and sometimes, like marriage, it doesn't feel good. You're not feeling this massive outpouring of love from God or the love of romance. And so sort of holding on to faith when it's challenging, it was definitely a song that had a religious inspiration for sure.
Now, Casey, I got to aim this at you.
Okay.
Have you not learned yet from Kate who really controls the house?
Yeah.
He has not learned.
I have not learned.
He definitely has not.
But I'm still learning.
Come back to a time where hopes were alive,
and the fires of love torch the heavens above.
we sailed through the night, shimmering sky.
But the waters ran dry, and the stars lost their shine.
When you're fighting to keep that spark of belief, someday you'll return to the flame of love. Come call me by name, turn your head, meet my gaze.
Our eyes haven't met in a while.
Day after day, in this echoing space,
I can barely remember your smile.
when you're fighting to keep that spark of belief, someday you'll return to the flame of love. Come stay by my side in the still of the night.
In the darkness, a candle burns bright.
The red fire burns
the end of the dark there is light.
When you're fighting to keep that spark of belief, someday you'll return to the flame of love.
The Flame from the Stapletons' debut album, Ballads and Battles. And don't forget to pray for Casey as he learns who's actually in charge at the Stapletons' house. The next time on The Antidote, I'm joined by Tommy Green of Sleeping Giant. This band has been a dominant force in the metal hardcore scene for over a decade, but now the band is coming to a close. I'll speak with Tommy about Sleeping Giant's unique role in bridging the gap between hard music and worship, and also we'll hear about the band's final release, I Am. Casey and Kate Stapleton are coming back for the final part of our talk, and we'll close with the song Star Sailor. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. I suppose it's probably too early to ask about more recording plans, even though it does sound like you've got something running. I've got an idea for you. Instead of basing the new album on the past, why don't you guys just go with like a space epic theme?
Well, that would bring us right to Star Sailor, which Casey, that was his song, and he kind of went into outer space, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have plans for, I guess you would call them like different themes, like EPs or even full albums. Like besides the Christmas one, we're doing a Western one next year with guitar and harp. Like we're taking a lot of like old Wild West songs and updating the melodies and the arrangements. We're going to be recording a Chinese song and releasing it in February for the new Chinese New Year.
We have a Chinese teacher living with us in our house because it's not crazy enough. Just our 3 children. So last year and this year as well, we've had Chinese teachers living with us. So it's this Chinese.
Yeah, it's called Tibetan Plateau. Basically, it's from Tibet, but it's a really popular song in China, and it's all about like the Tibetan Plateau. So I heard it, and I'm like, this is a really beautiful song. Let's cover it. Just as a fun thing, but we're not going to release a full Chinese album probably ever.
Right, definitely
that's not our.
But I mean, one of the things that we did while we were working on Ballads and Battles was really slowly build up the ability to record at home because, like you mentioned, we have a lot of kids. We don't have a lot of time. We're both working, so we have rudimentary but ample things that allow us. We have a basic recording studio in the attic now, and Casey's really worked hard to he wasn't planning on mixing the album, the last one that we did, but he ended up mixing Ballads and Battles, and so we can now do all of our own recording, all of our instruments, all of our vocals, all of our mixing at home. So the only thing that we have to take out is mastering. So it's becoming more and more affordable and possible for us to kind of work on these different projects and create different projects to put out there.
Well, it's going to be great to be able to hear some of the new stuff, and that Tibetan Chinese song sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I hope so.
Kate and Casey, thanks so much for coming and speaking with The Antidote. This has been fun.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Run away with me, my love, before the waking hour. Run away with me. Run away with me, my love, before the waking hour. Run away with me. Draw me, and together we will run on a dream never ending. together we will run. We'll sail upon the stars. We've only begun. Soar beyond the frozen skies. We'll tear this world apart and make all things new. Soar beyond the frozen skies. We'll tear this world apart and make all things new. Draw me and together we will run on a dream never ending. Draw me and together we will run. We'll sail upon the stars. We've only begun. Fields above where lovers lie, they'll sing the ancient song. Story old as time. Fields above where lovers lie, they'll sing the ancient song. Story old as time. Draw me and together we will run on a dream never ending. Draw me and together we will run. We'll sail upon the stars. Draw me and together we will run. Oh, draw me and together we will run on a dream never ending. Draw me and together we will run. We'll sail upon the stars. We've only begun.